Do like my sorry, like
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on? And welcome to Encrypted Connections. I am your host, Kyle, as usual. Happy Wednesday night. I hope you had a wonderful day today. Thank you all for being here again. Thanks for coming last night, guys. It was a fun show. I haven't done a show by myself in a while, and I was a little bit nervous. I think for some people it might be easier to do it by themselves. For me, it's harder. Like, I like to have somebody here that I can talk to and ask questions. And if I know it sounds crazy, but I don't necessarily like being in front of the camera. That's not the part that I like. The part that I like is the subject matter and being able to learn from other people and listen to people's stories and encounters and all that stuff. So, doing the show by myself, it's a little bit unnerving, but it went well. Of course, you guys are all just so great and supportive, and I can't thank you enough for that. Let me say hi to some people in the chat today. Brown Dwarf, Val, Janelle, Country Boy, Sharon. Who else? Okay, so that's it for right now. There's more people here, but not everyone's commenting, and that's just how it goes sometimes. But they'll file in. I know they will. Where are my two cheerleaders? Where's the Sunday night shit show guys? How come they're not here? There's one of them. There he is. Larry Hart, welcome, man. Thanks for coming by. Wow, that's a name I haven't seen here. Thank you, brother. So anyway, here's the deal. We did the name the site thing. I picked names that people had thrown out that were the more popular ones that people had said, oh, I like that one. I like that one. In doing so, one of the names that I picked, I hoped that people didn't pick it, but not for any bad reason, because to me, it seemed like a name that should be synonymous with Kerry, right? And that was the Odyssey research site. And a couple of people made this statement too in the comments, and I couldn't agree more. And of course, that was the one that got overwhelmingly the most of the votes. We're not going to pick that one. I just can't. It doesn't seem right. That is Kerry's thing. Maybe I shouldn't have put it up there, but I guess I thought it, maybe wouldn't get picked for that reason. But I guess it got picked for that reason. So instead, I just made a decision. And we're going to call that area Wonderland, because number one, it kind of goes with the whole white rabbit theme here, the rabbit hole, the white rabbit theme. It works. And as of right now, so far, it surely is a Wonderland. It has been really, really, really nuts there, as you've seen. But anyway, let's get into the show tonight. Have a friend of mine coming on the show. He is part of the YouTube show This Week in Bigfoot. If you don't watch it, you need to watch it. It's the best 30 minutes of Bigfoot you're going to spend in your day. I promise you, 30 minutes, and it literally covers so much. They do such a good job. There's there's comedy, there's gossip, there's the tech, there's whatever it is that's going on. These guys cover it, and they do it in such a wonderful way. It's entertaining, it's fun, it's factual, it's knowledgeable. It's one of my favorite shows on YouTube, and that's not a load of bullshit. If you look at my playlist, you'll see I watch it every time it's on. If I can't catch it when it's on, I watch it afterwards. He's also part of the CARC, which is the Catskills Appalachian Research Collective. I think I got that right. The Catskills Appalachian Research Collective, which is in New York. Not all of New York is city. I know people think this. Much of New York State is forested land. The Catskills is a beautiful area with tons of forest, many Bigfoot reports. It's so these guys are out there doing research, and obviously he goes other places, but let me bring him in right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mike Luci. Welcome to the show, Mike. How are you, buddy?
What's going on, Kyle? Thanks for having me on. I'm glad you actually touched on the whole rabbit thing. When I was watching the intro, I was thinking to myself, damn, those rabbit masks are creepy. I saw the whole rabbit theme. I'm like, what's the figuring behind that? Then you mentioned the whole rabbit hole angle. I was like, you know what? That's fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
I love that.
So I'm kind of like there's kind of a couple meanings to it, right? Obviously the rabbit hole thing, like whenever you get into this kind of subject matter, you end up inevitably going down many rabbit holes, right?
Oh, for sure.
You start studying one thing, something else pops up and you're like, whoa, what's this? And then it's like you're sitting in front of a keyboard for 3 or 4 hours studying, something totally different. And that's just how this stuff kind of works. So there's that part of it. There's also like, I am such a believer in whatever it is that piques your curiosity. Like, right, to me, that's like symbolically your white rabbit. So like anything that piques your curiosity, I say chase it. Like go get it. If it makes you want to learn, if it drives you to seek knowledge, like that's a good thing. So like go for it. I'm also a huge fan of the Jefferson Airplane song. If you've never heard that, then you need to listen to it. It's a wonderful song. And I say listen to it in a cappella because it makes it all the more creepier. It's about the rabbit in Wonderland, kind of.
The one with the clock?
Yeah, a little bit about possibly doing some hallucinogens. Maybe it was written back in like the 60s. So it was
isn't that the story behind Alice in Wonderland? Wasn't supposedly the guy who wrote it, he was on some kind of like acid trip or crazy mushroom trip or something?
Yeah. There's a few different stories, but yeah. So one of them is that this guy like took a massive trip, and then this is how he came up with this story. If you ever seen it, or read the book, it's easy to see that, possibly this is what happened, because it's a trippy story. I mean, there's so many there's mushrooms in it. There's smiling Cheshire cats that change color. And, it's a bugged out story.
I saw the Disney version.
You saw the what?
I saw the Disney version back in like the early 90s. When I was like 5 years old. So,
even the Disney version is weird. I mean, if you really watch it and look at the characters and all that stuff, it's really a strange like story, but it's worth looking into. So you're here. In case people don't know, because this is the first time you've been on this show, and in case people don't, haven't watched you before and they don't know you, tell us how, like, what got you started in this subject matter, in this field.
Yeah, so I guess for me, I was always fascinated with like anything with the horror genre, paranormal, high strangeness, or anything like that. As far as like Bigfoot goes, I always kind of took it with a grain of salt. I just thought it was probably something that was largely isolated in the Midwest. But then I started watching shows like Monster Quest and stuff like that, and I keep seeing I keep seeing stories about the Ohio Grassman, the skunk down in Florida. So I'm like, okay, so maybe it's a thing that just goes on in Pacific Northwest, Florida, some parts of the South, Ohio. Then I started watching Finding Bigfoot, Just, I was bored one night, just trying to find something on Netflix to watch, and I thought it was like at first I thought it was a little absurd. They're going to all these states. I'm thinking to myself, there's no way that people seeing Squatches in all these states. But I know the show, it gets a lot of flack and everything like that. But it's just like the way they explain things. They're just like some subtle nuances, some opinions and stuff like that they kept on dropping throughout that show that just some stuff that kind of like stuck with me. Like one of the things they'd always say was, we believe that up to like 80% of Bigfoot reports, sightings or whatever don't even go unreported. And I kind of realized like, wow, I did my own research. I realized stuff like wow, like there's a lot more stretches of wilderness, remote woods and stuff like that in certain areas like New York, Jersey, Connecticut, kind of like our area than I realized. And so before I started doing like the Bigfoot stuff on a dedicated basis, as some people might know, I'm a huge hockey fan, and I used to like do a lot of like hockey blogging, and around this time a couple of years ago, I know it's big in baseball and stuff like that, but things like advanced statistics that started to become like a thing, like the hockey blogosphere. You run like you crunch certain numbers, you look for like certain like correlations, patterns or whatever among players that stood out. So, and like around this time until like last year, my favorite team, my New Jersey Devils, they've been kind of unwatchable over the last 8-9 years or so. So, especially the last like 4 or 5 years, where they just kind of been like bottom feeders, I check out about halfway through. I mean, I saw the games on, stuff like that, but I just, check out and I kind of, redirected my attention to like the Bigfoot stuff. So, I wound up linking up with the CARC when they first got started. But, I wound up linking to, I thought to myself a couple of times, we do this advanced stat stuff in hockey. What if we could do something similar with all this Bigfoot stuff? What if there's, maybe like some type of like, maybe what if there's like patterns that emerge or, correlations that emerge if you crunch some of this data? So I started doing my own research, and sure enough, some of the stuff I wound up researching some of the, numbers and data I started crunching. Yeah. Like it seemed like, certain patterns started to emerge. And I just think something like that's too much of a coincidence to try, to be able to just like readily dismiss and ignore. So just the more I researched it, the deeper I kept on going down this rabbit hole, I thought to myself, all right, number one, yeah, it's possible that these things are, these things, if they're real, gotta throw in that disclaimer. Mm-hmm. It's possible that these things are probably a lot more widespread than we realized. There's definitely a lot more places for, creatures like this, to potentially hide than I realized. And, like the rest was just history.
So that's really interesting. I didn't know that. I had no idea that you did this like advanced statistics with Bigfoot. I think it's really intriguing. I know that when we were supposed to go on the trip initially, I think it was you who said when we realized it was going to rain that there was a statistic that so much percentage of Bigfoot sightings happen after a rainstorm. And I'm like, where the hell did he get that statistic? But now it makes sense. I mean, how do you get? I mean, where do you find all this stuff to put it together?
So there's definitely a couple of variables in that regard. I'm actually planning on revisiting that particular case study I put together on the possible correlation between sightings and precipitation. But for that, what I did was I basically just found, gathered as many reports as possible. I'm mostly focused on our area, so Southern New York, New Jersey, PA, Connecticut, that area. But I only did distinct, clear-cut Class A sightings, like people who claim they had a definite sighting, just because like the wood knocks, the vocals, finding prints, or people who are into like the stick structure, mumbo jumbo, like that stuff's interesting. But there's still too much. Like you can't not like you can't not rule out it being something else. At least with like an actual sighting or something like that, it was like that the people claim like this is what they think they saw. So I just gathered as many reports of that as possible from just like public databases and everything like that. So then any that had like a specific date where it happened, I just went to, I just found like the Farmer's Almanac or just like weather reports and stuff like that. And, checked out the weather for the area. One thing I did though, that I would like to change is I looked, for when I did that statistic, I looked back, I think the past like 96 hours. So the past 5 days or something like that, 4 or 5 days or something like that. I probably should have done it maybe closer to 2 or 3 if I were to redo it, because I think like the average, it obviously varies depending on where you are in the country, but the average area, like the average spot, any given spot in the U.S., it rains like once every, like it rains like 30% of like the 365 days or something like that. So yeah, so something along those lines. So like I don't want to, like for lack of a better word, I don't want to say that statistic was like misleading or anything like that, but I just think I was a little too generous on the time frame that I looked back on. I definitely like I'm sure like a sizable amount of those of reports like that could probably fall within that other range, but I want to I definitely want to like redo that at some point, just for the just so I like know I did it, have that updated data in front of me.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, it's so interesting. Can you tell me about some of the other studies that you've done, like any of the other ones that you feel like really good about? The statistics that you found, or the cycles that kind of occur and happen, and the correlations between them.
Yeah, so like one of the things that I've noticed is the majority of the vast majority of reports happen when the witness is driving. The majority, and like just to clarify too, when I say reports, I mean like visual, clear-cut Class A sightings, like people who like are certain that what they saw, what they supposedly saw was a squatch. Yeah, so the majority of them happen when people are driving. The majority of them are, they only last for a couple of seconds. Majority happen at night. The majority happen, in the summer months and the fall months. One thing that I found really interesting though was the vast majority, like it was like 58% or something like that when I did this study. The witness wasn't alone. They had at least like one other person with them. So I found that particularly interesting. To go back to the whole rain correlation. One other thing, I'm kind of like furbishing this out. I'll probably do like a segment on it on This Week in Bigfoot eventually. But
awesome.
Another thing I noticed, like the statistics kind of out there, but you see an overlap with parts in the U.S. that have the highest levels of rainfall and concentrations of Bigfoot sightings. The Pacific Northwest. It has the only rainforest in North America. That happens to be where that happens to be like the hotspot, the go-to place for Bigfoot sightings. Outside of that, I think the American South has gets the most rainfall in the continental United States. Next to the Pacific Northwest, the most Bigfoot sightings and reports that come out of the continental U.S. is in the Deep South. So then I started looking at specific. So I started looking at specific states, just like random states, and I would take like rain maps and I would overlap them with maps that kind of like dotted out Bigfoot reports and stuff like that. And the areas with the highest rainfall, a lot of these clusters or areas that plotted out these sightings, they were almost either like directly on top of each other, or the sightings were kind of like near or around those areas with the highest level of rainfall. So then I took it a step further. I looked at some of the states that get the most rainfall, like Louisiana, Louisiana and places like that. I figured, all right, if it's like a state like that, I'd imagine the Bigfoot, like the Bigfoot sightings are probably going to be more like evenly dispersed. So they're like you probably won't see like much of a pattern. what I noticed was even in those states, a good amount of sightings, a lot of these like clusters and everything like that, they either overlapped or were noticeably near those parts of the states that got the most rainfall. So that was one recurring pattern I found particularly interesting. And then on our most recent episode, I did this thing. We're talking about like squatches and like being sighted in places like Connecticut, like small states like Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Southern New York, and stuff like that. Like there's Bigfoot sightings that come out of Westchester County, even like that's my county. It's one of the most, it's literally like right above New York City. It's one of the most concentrated, in terms of population, population counties in the country. You have your reports coming out of like Connecticut, like some really populated counties in New Jersey and everything like that. I'm thinking to myself, that seems a little too far-fetched to me. I mean, it'd be great if I had something like that going around in my county. I don't have to drive like an hour and a half to do research. But the argument I see from a lot of people is, oh well, Bigfoot, like you don't need to go to like vast remote stretches of wilderness to potentially find one of these things. They probably just need, as long as they have enough forest cover to as long as they got enough forest cover to remain hidden, move around without getting detected or anything like that. That's really all they need. That suffices. So I try to find correlations between the amount of the percentage of forest coverage for each state and Bigfoot sightings. So I compared like total forest acreage, so like the total area, and then like what percentage of the states were actually covered in forest, and Bigfoot sightings. And I did cumulative per capita, I think per like 100,000 or something like that. And I even think I did like this one had this section on a couple of variables. I even think I did something like sightings per 10,000 acres or something like that. That one I kind of like, I kind of just like winged that one. But what I noticed was with the top 10, with like the top 15 states that have the most forest coverage, barely any of them appeared on the top 15 states that had the most cumulative Bigfoot sightings. Neither did many appear on the top 15 states per capita. There's barely any overlap. That wasn't the case with that wasn't the case though with actual forest acreage. The states with the most forest, the states with like the most forest acreage, most square acres and everything like that. A lot more of those states in the top, and in that top 15, you wind up seeing on top 15 states with the most Bigfoot sightings per capita, or the cumulative numbers, the cumulative numbers and everything like that. And then the other thing I noticed was the magic number seems to be 20 million square acres. I think there's about 12 states that have 20 million square acres or more, and I think like half of them appear on it was either one or both lists or something like that. I think like 9 out of 12 or something like that.
Wow.
Appeared on one of the lists. I don't have the data. I don't have the data in front of me, but I remember like a 9 out of 12 or 9 out of 15 or something like that popping up that really really caught my eye. So based on that, it kind of gives me reason to believe that like it's definitely possible that they could be a lot closer to home than we realize. But I think for the most part, your best bet is still to get somewhere with like as much vastness, as much area as possible for them to roam around. And then the other thing too I found interesting was the top 15 states with the most forested acres. I think like half of them or 2/3 of them are covered by less than 40% forest.
Okay.
So, I thought that was pretty cool. So, I know I filibustered for a couple of minutes, but
no, That's what you're here for, man. It's interesting stuff. You're obviously a numbers guy, because this is not something I could do. I get so damn confused, and I'm not organized enough to do a study like that. But it's all very interesting. I want to address this comment real quick. Shade Viking. I didn't know you lived in Connecticut. That's where I live. It's where I'm researching right now. It's where I've been researching. I do go other places, obviously, but mostly in the northeast corner of Connecticut is where I've done most of my stuff. And, you know, like Mike said, this is not a big state. It's not like probably one of the best states as far as Bigfoot reports go. But there's stuff that goes on here. I can tell you that,
Sure.
at least in my eyes, from what the evidence that I've gathered and I'm gathering right now in the property that I'm on, which is in the far northeast corner that butts right up to Massachusetts and Rhode Island. So it's possible that they can be anywhere, but like Mike said, makes more sense that they would want to be places where they can hide easier. Larger places that they can move around and go undetected, bigger areas to hunt, where they're not going to bump into humans as much, or they're not going to maybe even have to, fight for food with another family, Sasquatch family. Who knows? But yeah, they're here. I promise you that they're here. I know this place gets a kind of the shit end of the stick when it comes to Bigfoot talk. And I believe the same thing for a very long time, until I really started getting out there and getting in some of these like real thick, deep wooded areas. And I don't know if they stayed in these areas or if they passed through. That's another thing, right? Yeah. I'm not sure if they stay there, if they pass through. The place I'm at right now seems like, from what I've got in the account from the property owner, is summer and fall is when the majority of the activity really kicks up. He still tends to get some in the winter and the spring, but summer and fall is when it gets really, really crazy for him over the last few years. And that's what's happening now. So I'm imagining that they probably stay there somewhere or nearby, but in like Patchogue, where I go, Patchogue State Forest, which is it's like 16,000 acres, which for Connecticut is a large forest. I think it's the biggest forest in the state. It's, for us, that's huge, but that's nothing compared to like where you are or the Adirondacks, like just massive, 6 million plus acres up there. But like for us, what's that?
Like no one can hear your scream territory,
Yeah, no, those are places where if you go out there and you get lost, you're dead. Like you're not coming back. It would be pretty hard to get lost in 16,000 acres and not find your way out in at least a couple days. In 6 million, you're done. You're gonna get turned around and you ain't finding your way out.
So like one of the interesting things though too about, and like places like Connecticut, even their state forests and state parks and stuff like that, especially when you do like a search on Google Earth or Google Maps or something like that, you notice you have all these houses kind of sprinkled in there and everything. And again, to me at first, that to me was like a red flag that this to me just like lessens the possibility that they're gonna be in areas like this. But then I thought about it. I was thinking, well, if these areas are private property, they probably get like, especially in like the off trail areas, you probably have to like you probably have like bushwhacking and stuff like that. They probably get a fraction of the foot traffic going through there that some of these public, state forests and state parks get. So I was thinking, especially at night too. So if any, I've kind of had a bit of like a back, like an internal struggle, internal back and forth with this. But I'm thinking to myself, if anything, who's to say that's probably something maybe maybe a potential Squatch won't, realize that they could use to their advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Real quick, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Can somebody answer me this question? How do I unban somebody that I just banned? I didn't mean to. I meant to highlight a comment, and I banned Show Me Sasquatch, and I removed their comments. Can somebody tell me how to undo that? Because I didn't mean to, and now I feel terrible, and I don't know how to undo it. So if somebody knows how, please write in the comments. I'm sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
I feel terrible. I don't know. Show Me Sasquatch, if you're listening, I apologize. I'm so sorry. As soon as I figure it out, I will get you unbanned. I apologize. So anyway, I'm sorry, Mike. Continue, buddy.
Minor hiccup, technical difficulty. It happens.
Oh man, no, this wasn't a timeout, Fresh. This was banned. Banned. He said they have to wait in the doghouse. This is banned. I don't know how to unban them. Crap. I'll get it figured out. I'm sorry, guys. I'm new here.
So good.
So anyway, go ahead, buddy. I'm sorry. Continue. Right. But yeah, I agree with you.
But yeah, so that really got me thinking too. I can't give away the actual location, but over this weekend I was actually doing something out in a part of Connecticut over the weekend, and the area that we were in, same thing. We were going down trails and stuff like that, and all of a sudden you couldn't go any further because that public trail turned into a private road. And just branching off those roads were other driveways and stuff like that just went like right into the woods. So that was really one of the things that got me thinking about that, because in theory anything, even something that people think are like that people say is like 7, 8, 9 feet tall, could probably just cruise through there if it stays quiet, especially at night. Nobody would know the wiser, especially if it gets like areas like that get like a fraction of the foot traffic that those same areas in a public area would. I don't think it's that inconceivable.
No, absolutely not. That northwest corner of Connecticut is so crazy, man. It's like you said, it's just there. You have the Appalachian Trail that's close by. You have the Berkshires that are close by, and that whole area of Connecticut is very, very rural. You have dirt roads. You have old logging roads from years and years and years ago. Rolling hills and woods forever. This is where the Winstead Wildman story comes from, which is that's one of the older stories from the East Coast as far as these beings are concerned. I've been up there many times, and it's a really interesting area.
Yeah, and I mean, Connecticut itself is just like in terms of like paranormal, high strangeness, and everything like that. It's really a very weird state in that regard. I'm sure you've heard of the story of the melon heads.
Oh, you're just talking about this last night.
Oh no, shit.
Yeah.
That was
the melon heads.
Yeah, that's one story. That's one story coming out of there that always fascinated me. I don't know how true it is. I think it's like Milford. It started with an M, Milford or Monroe. So I heard this one story about the faceless people. There's like a house. It has like a caretaker, and there's people who don't have faces. Supposedly they wander outside sometimes, and the student walks around with like a candle or something like that in this house. And supposedly there's people who know where it is and how to get there. I know like one really famous case that happened in Connecticut. It was like one of the Conjuring movies was based on it, but apparently there was a murder trial in Connecticut, and the defense, it was the first time that demonic possession was used as a means of defense in a legal trial. So it's probably not necessarily known as known for Bigfoot sightings, but in terms of like paranormal stuff, Connecticut's got like a really, really deep history. I know Dudleytown's another place, but at the same time, I know it's on private property, but at the same time too, I've heard that a lot of those stories are like blown out of proportion or exaggerated.
Yeah, they are. I mean, at least I've been up there, and it's it's kind of a desolate area. It's kind of wooded, tucked away. A little weird, but it was nothing like what you hear. Like they say that it's like as soon as you step into that area, it's you get this overwhelming feeling of like darkness, and like there's you need to get out of there. People start hearing voices whispering. But yeah, this state has tons of paranormal stuff. I mean, Ed and Lorraine Warren lived here. That should tell you something. They had that cemetery that they used to do take people to all the time with the white lady of the cemetery, which is like one of the most famous stories that comes out of Connecticut. Many people have seen her. I mean, I know you hear about the white lady everywhere, but this is like, there's been pictures taken of this lady in this flowing gown that like floats through the cemetery. The faceless people's another one. That's a crazy one. I've heard that story a few times too. But we talked about the melon heads last night. I called them pumpkin heads. I knew it wasn't pumpkin, it was melon. And I was telling people though that I think a lot of that story is attributed to a medical condition that like back in the day, if somebody's child had, then they didn't really know what to do with people who had like deformities, mental health problems, special needs, that kind of thing. A lot of times families back then would get rid of their children.
Oh yeah.
They put them in homes because, they considered them to be kind of less than, right? It's just the way society was. And especially if they didn't know how to take care of them. But that medical condition is a form of encephalopathy. And it creates this swelling inside the brain cavity, and it ends up pressing against the skull, and the skull ends up getting deformed and big and bulbous. I worked for many years with people who had both physical and mental disabilities, and I've had a few clients who've had that problem, and they had very, very large heads, big bulbous foreheads, and they were misshapen. They were each one of them was wheelchair bound because their head was so heavy that it ended up causing problems in their neck and their spine, and they couldn't, eventually they couldn't walk. It's really sad, but I think a lot of that could possibly be tied back to that, because when they closed a lot of these places down, they just let people go. If they weren't considered, like sociopathic, if you weren't criminally insane, then they just were like, sorry, we have no funding anymore for these places. You can't stay here anymore. And they kind of packed their bags, sent them on their way with their papers. And that was that. And so in a lot of these towns that used to have big group homes, large hospitals, all that stuff, you would see that they would still have these communities of people who were homeless, who were, walking around the streets talking to themselves. It's really sad, to be honest with you, really, really sad. But one of the theories was that that's what happened. That there was a few of them that ended up going into the woods and living there because they didn't know where else to go. And they kind of, would wander around because they just didn't fit into society that well. And people would see them like wandering the road at night and be like, oh my God, the melon head, and thought it was a monster. But still an interesting story.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to ask you, I was having this conversation the other day with all this new AI stuff. We already have so much in the way of the waters being muddied on a regular basis, right? By hoaxers, by bullshitters, by liars, charlatans, and the like. Now with this AI stuff, do you think that this is going to create an even bigger issue in this community? Do you think people are going to try to take advantage of this and say look, I'm the greatest Bigfoot researcher on the planet. Now I've got, clear-cut proof that these things exist. Look right here. Do you think the AI at some point is going to get to be good enough to where it can truly make people believe that something that's not real, the picture that's not real, is a real Bigfoot?
Yes and I think yes and no. As far as the hoaxing and stuff like that, I really think that the damage now is it's done so much damage to people wanting to push the ball further in this community, and have the mainstream media, mainstream science take this whole thing seriously. I just think the damage is at the point of it's pretty much at the point of no return. I think it's permanent, and it's just at the point where I think the only way that will happen is if someone just physically drags out a physical specimen, especially from the woods one of these days. As far as like the AI stuff goes, I think probably for like the newer people who aren't as entrenched in this stuff as people like you and I are, or some of the other lads that are in that group chat, that are in the Facebook group chat where we are. People like us will probably be able to tell the difference. The newer people, they probably might not catch on as quickly. We also have to keep in mind too that it's this AI stuff. It's like, relatively speaking, it's in its infancy still. So yeah, it's probably only going to get better. The way I look at it is, if it's too good to be true, it's probably not true.
Agreed.
Like I think at this point, a lot of the images out there, they still really don't look too lifelike. They almost look like, they all kind of have like that CGI-esque element. Some of those black and white photos showing like the 15-foot tall ones, those are really cool. Like, if you ran those by a couple of people who really don't have have as much of a pulse on what's going on in this community, in the space as we do, you might be able to fool a couple of them. But yeah, I think for the most part, with like the serious dedicated researchers and everything like that, it's there's definitely like a lot of awareness that's been raised. It's something that people are keeping their eye out. So the more diligent, mindful people, it will probably be a lot more difficult to get passed by. But those newer Bigfoot fangirl people, those are probably the ones that'll probably get got by that stuff. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, I agree, and this is why I say, like, it's really important to try to keep your emotions out of it, right? People get married to it. People get emotionally attached to the subject, and they want something to be real so bad that they end up believing things that they really shouldn't, right? If this was all as easy as some people claim it to be, there would be bodies upon bodies in freezers across the United States and the rest of the world being studied, and that's not the case. This is not easy. It's been proven over the course of I don't know how long. We don't know how long they've even been here. That's the other thing. Like the Native Americans have history with them going back how long? Hundreds of years.
Yeah, and the interesting too about the the history with Native Americans is just in North America alone. You see this in other ancient societies and ancient communities and societies across the world, but in just North America alone, I think there's like 200 and something odd Native American tribes located all across the country at different points in time. Some of them had no contact, didn't know the other one exists with each other whatsoever.
Bingo.
All have some type of creature or entity that's the way it's depicted, its description or how it go about conducting itself would fit what we today would probably identify as a modern day Sasquatch. I'm sorry I cut you off there before, but
No, you're good, man. Don't apologize. That's what you're here for, man. I want to hear from you. I agree. I want to go back real quick. Those pictures you were talking about, the black and white ones with the 15-foot tall giant Sasquatch. You're right. I can look at those pictures and know that they're not real, but I also look at them and go, holy shit, that's really good.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it looks realistic enough that if somebody wasn't very versed in this, that they would go, oh my God, there's a human being standing side by side with a 15-foot tall Sasquatch holding its hand, for God's sakes. And if that was the case, again, we'd have some kind of physical evidence of them, but they're really good. They're fun to look at. I'll give you that. I mean, they're really fun to look at.
You see the one where it's like its hand turns into like a vine or like a tree or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I did see that. Hey Shade, do me a favor, buddy. If you can, get a hold of me on my email. Let me throw it up here because I want to talk to you about where you live, and then also about that Dogman story, because I
Yeah.
don't know that I've ever heard that. Have you heard that story, Mike?
No, I've never heard
The
any.
Dogman ambulance story in the Putnam area?
Never heard any type of dog. Now, is that Putnam, Connecticut, or Putnam County, New York? Because that's only like 50 minutes north of me, Putnam County.
He's saying Connecticut, which
Okay.
is up near where I'm at, like currently.
Oh, okay.
I'd love to hear that story because I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
So get a hold of me if you can, buddy. So I want to talk real quick too. I want to touch on the show because I love the show. I think it's such a great concept. And so there's a bunch of you who are part of the show. How many of you make up the show?
Yeah, so there's there's 3 or 4 of us. There's three or four of us usually. And before that at the CARC, we were doing like the live podcast and everything like that, and we just came to the conclusion that it's just too much. It's just too. I don't want to say stressful. It was just too much work that we were willing to handle. Trying to get guests every week, trying to get guests every episode, doing all the research, promoting it, and then you have to. Some of these shows we had, you're on for like hour and a half, 2.5 hours. I mean, something like this with you. I'll stay on with you all night. But when you do it like once a week or once every other week, it kind of just drains you. And we we did pretty good. We did pretty good when we went live. But at the end of the day, most of these shows, if we're lucky, they got maybe a few hundred views afterwards. It was just kind of like we have our live show. It had a little spurt, a few days afterwards, and then boom, people just forget about it. There wouldn't be any afterwards. So we don't get me wrong, doing the podcast for 2 years, for 2 seasons, it was a great way to it was a great way to like network and stuff like that. We definitely connected. Excuse me. We definitely connected ourselves with some like pretty prominent names and everything. Had some awesome conversations during that time. But we wanted to. But the idea behind This Week in Bigfoot was something that it was a new, unique angle that no one else was really doing. Like kind of like set us apart from everyone else. So we kind of just took it and ran away with it, and here we are now. I mean, like it's probably on like a week-to-week basis, it's probably close to the amount of work that you have to do for like live podcast. But for me, it's mostly just doing research, writing. I write for a living. I write for a living. I'm a writer, so it kind of comes like firsthand to me.
Right.
So, it's pretty it's not too bad. It's pretty manageable. It's pretty manageable, like that in that regard. And the segments aren't particularly long. Like I try to keep my segments around 350 words. But anyone who knows me knows I'm a very finicky, nitpicky writer. Like. Even at work and stuff like that, like I'll spend like an hour and a half staring at a sentence or like trying to figure out or start like one word at a sentence or something like that, and just micromanage, over analyze the crap out of it. And man, especially if you get in the grind, you're doing real like intricate research and stuff like that. It's a workout for your brain. It's a workout for your brain. So I'll have some, I'll do some of these. I'll write out some of these segments, stuff like that. Afterwards, I just have to like put my laptop down and just, sit back, decompress for a second.
I can imagine, and I talk about this pretty often. Like, I don't think anyone realizes how much work goes into having a show. It really is much more than people know. I think what they're taking on initially. I had no idea. The amount of time that it takes to continuously find a guest, to contact the guest, to try to work out a time and a date, and then when that's all done, then you have the thumbnail thing. You have to set the premiere. You have to advertise for it. All that stuff. I mean, that all takes time, and then you have the show. So then again, you have an hour and a half, 2 hours. I mean, there's been times where I've been on this show for 3 hours, right? And it's not like you don't like it. I enjoy the subject, of course I do, but it's a lot of time, and it starts to wear you out after a little while. And recently I took some time to just kind of say, okay, I need a break from the show a little bit. I'm going to continue going out in the woods, but I needed to back off from the show just a bit because it was just starting to wear me down. And I don't think people understand that.
That's kind of the thing too. One of my other concerns. I don't want this. I don't want my main priority with my involvement with the stuff is I want to do like serious. It's amateur research. I don't have like a PhD in anything sciencey or analytics or anything like that. So I'm going to do it on an amateur level. But I want to do like serious, dedicated research. I want to get out in the field, out in the woods, and do as much of that as possible. So I always try to be mindful to just stay true to that. Like my New Year's resolution this year was try to get out in the woods at least once a month.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good place to get. You kind of unwind out there. You find your center again. It's kind of a recharge for me, at least.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to say real quick. It's one of my childhood friends right here. I want to say hello to Gianna. Hi, honey. Thank you for saying hi. She's such a cute, sweet kid. I don't know what she's doing watching this show, but thank you. I appreciate it. Anyway.
Each week I'd say between writing, doing the research, writing the segments, the friggin' 20-something odd rounds of editing I put my shit through before I'm happy with it, and then actually recording the segments, I probably spend anywhere from 10 to 20 hours a week on this stuff.
Yeah.
And God forbid it's like a weekend where because it airs on Friday at the latest. We try to have everything written, recorded, sent over, to be set up by Tuesday night at the latest. God forbid it's like a night where it's like a Sunday or a Monday night and I haven't even gotten in any of my segments together or anything like that. That's exactly. So
stressful.
Yeah, so I've dealt with have had to deal with that a couple of times. But the one thing I love the most about it though is it's really just a great way as far as like dealing with this field for me to flex my creative muscle. Just coming up with all these different angles and stuff, different angles and different stories and topics and stuff like that to cover. But there's definitely a couple of things that I've kind of half-assed it on. Like I'm sure you watch our episodes and everything like that. I really kind of half-assed it with the video, like my video quality, my audio quality and stuff like that. This coming episode, I'm using like an actual like legit web camera. I'm not just using the dinky web camera that comes with my MacBook. I have like an actual mic now, so my voice doesn't sound as like flamboyant and high pitched like it does in like the first 13 episodes. Oh yeah, because like I would watch the episodes and stuff like that, and sometimes I would cringe. I'd be like, I hate. Not that I hate watching myself. I think I have a very pretty face, but like I hate listening to myself.
I agree, Mike. You do have a very pretty face. I get it. We're our biggest critics, man. I totally understand it. I mean, I went out and bought a new webcam, got this special light, the microphone, the little thing you put on it, and I'm still sitting there critiquing everything I do, going, it could be better. But I totally understand it, man. It's a creative mind. That's what a creative mind does.
Definitely. They focus on that, and I kind of took it for granted that assumed, all right, what? As long as I put out compelling, engaging content that, it's gonna like catch people's ears and stuff like that. The rest of that stuff's not gonna matter, and I slowly realized that really hasn't been the been the case. You know, the only real feedback I've been getting is just, you know, from like a couple of my friends and stuff like that who follow the show and watch the show and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see just, you know, what improving my image, my audio and stuff like that, you know, how that's going to like, you know, affect my influence on things going down the road.
It's an interesting thing, man. You know, this is all learning curves to this stuff, right? You especially if you're somebody like me, like I consider myself a creative. Obviously, I love doing creative things, and you know, whether it's drawing as a kid or you know, like this kind of stuff. I like to edit, but I hate it at the same time because it's just so time consuming. It's crazy. But you know, it's when I watch your show, I sit there and I go, damn, like I wish I did something like this. I just think it's such a great format. That you're right. There's nothing else out there like it. Nobody was doing this. You're touching on so much of everything. Sometimes you touch on things that are controversial on that show, right? A little bit, possibly. Do you get blowback from that when you touch on topics that may be a little bit, you know, we're talking about like hoaxing and that kind of stuff? Do you get blowback? I mean, is there a negative side to doing a show like this?
From my experience, not really. From my experience, me personally, not really. Like, our thing also, like, you know, our slogan is, you know, be informed, not biased. So we always try. So like, our thing is we always just try to stick to the facts. Just try to present things as, you know, like the most impartial way. Just, you know, be like as impartial as possible. You know, as impartial as possible about it. So, you know, I know like a good amount of my segments I've done on potential videos or images that might have like a swatch in it and stuff like that. And like after I do my research and put this together, some of these I'm looking at, I'm just like, this is freaking BS. You know, like it's a misidentification or it's a hoax or something like that. But you don't want to say that. So like I always make sure, even if I do indicate like, you know, where I'm tilting on it, I always try to reiterate, you know, I always try to say something like, but that's just one opinion. And I always try to end it with something like, you know, so I'll let you guys decide, you know, I'll let you, the viewer, it's your call. You decide based on what you've heard, is this, you know, fact or faked or fact or hoaxed or whatever the slogan is that we use for that. But that's kind of how, you know, how we go about doing that. And so, you know, like I really think we've done a good job at you know, really good job of just like, you know, keeping grounded, sticking true to that philosophy, that mentality. Even I think it was last week's episode. Well, this is actually going to touch on a point you made before. You were saying stuff like, people want to believe in the stuff, and as a result, it makes them buy into things that they really shouldn't have. And you hit the nail on the head so well with that. You know, like, you know, what you said a couple of minutes ago. I've meaning to comment on that, but having said that, and you know, this might tick a few people off. This might tick a few people off in the chat, or you know, who might wind up watching this afterwards. That notion there is kind of why I don't really buy into the whole stick structure treatment ablation thing. I really think it's BS.
Yeah, I here's the thing. I understand why people feel that way. I get it, right? There's a lot of things that can happen naturally that can cause trees to land in these formations that look strange and yada yada. And so I understand it. I don't get mad at anybody for having an opinion on something, right? Like if it's an informed opinion, and you're somebody who does your due diligence, and you're not just, you know, kind of arguing for argument's sake or whatever. I'll never get upset with somebody who says, you know, oh, well, I don't feel the same way. Well, I'm glad you don't, because if we all thought the same way, there'd be no furthering this topic at all. We'd all be stuck in the same place, right? And I understand why some people don't buy into the stick structures. I've seen things out there that are very strange that to me just don't make any sense naturally. I sit underneath a couple of these things looking up at them going, I just don't get it. I play it over in my head over and over and over and go, how the hell is this possible by wind? How the hell is this possible by snow load? How could this be made? How would any human beings come out here and do this? But I understand it. Like, I understand why people feel that way. There's things about this topic that, I don't buy into that other people do. Right. And that's what's great about it, is that there's always going to be the opportunity to maybe find something out that you didn't believe in, and maybe one day you find something that makes you change your mind, or somebody gives you a really great argument, and then you go, shit, I never thought about it that way. It's one of the things that I love about this topic so much.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because like my thing with the stick structures and stuff like that is, like, on that segment I showed a picture of during a hurricane, like a wooden 2x4 had gotten, it went right through a palm tree, friggin' impaled a pine tree. Impaled a palm tree. So my figuring is, if something like this could happen naturally, why is it so hard? Why is it so hard for some people to fathom that a bunch of a bunch of sticks just happen to fall and make this, like, bizarre formation, or a tree happened to some people say, like, tree breaks, it got broken in twisting motion. Why is it so hard to fathom that something like that couldn't have happened naturally? Look, I'm not saying like high winds and hurricanes are causing all this stuff, but if something like that could happen, then why can't anything like that? One interesting, and this is something I know we talked about when we'd spoken about it a week or two ago. One interesting story, and I heard this actually from two separate sources, two people who two individuals who, to my knowledge, don't know each other, don't interact with each other or anything like that, claim that with some of these stick structures, if you're in an area you have no cell phone service or anything like that, supposedly if you put your phone like under or inside of one of these structures, you'll wind up getting a couple of bars. So the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, well, that's
seems crazy, right?
It seems kind of far fetched. That's just something that someone's saying. When I heard it the second time, though, from a completely different source, then I was thinking, okay, that's interesting. But for me to make any ruling on something like that, it's something I'd literally have to, like, see for myself, try out for myself, But
it's interesting because now I kind of want to go to one of these spots that I've seen this. There's this one that I really like. And it's what's really weird about it is it has this feeling to it, like you're like it's important. Like, if that makes any sense, like it's just this strange feeling you get, like in an area that's just woods everywhere and sticks everywhere and down trees. There's this one weird structure that just looks and feels very, very different and very important. And every time I got near it, I would just like get this weird, overwhelming feeling, like something about this thing. And I've gone through my head over and over thinking, like, how could this have possibly happened naturally? But now I really want to go and take the phone there, because it is in an area where I have no service. So I'm very curious. This is going to have to be something I'm going to have to do.
Yeah, definitely report back to me on that. I'll even come with you if we're able to plan it out.
Oh, you can come if you want to come. Yeah. You're absolutely welcome to come.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if I told you or not, but I think summer 2020, I'd gotten together with a couple of Connecticut-based researchers. We were in like southeast Connecticut, and we actually went squatching out in that forest that starts with the P. Patchogue or something like that.
Patchogue, yeah.
Yeah, and then we went to Arcadia Wildlife Management Area in Western Rhode Island, right across that bridge. We found what appeared to be like some type of like possible, some type of like possible print or something like that. We only found one of them, but it really wasn't in the area where you could have made like a clear definitive trackway. If it was anything, it probably just got lucky. It just happened to have like, spotted down there. But all the, like all the necessary details you needed were there. I remember that. Of course, no one had any casting material or anything like that when it happened. But yeah, man, it's just it's definitely an interesting. That's definitely an interesting area around.
Yeah, it is, and that Arcadia wildlife management area. There, if I remember correctly, on the Bigfoot mapping project, I think there was at least one, maybe two sightings or tracks or something that was found there. I think also the BFRO has something on their site that happened in that area, and that is literally just adjacent to Patchogue. I mean, they're like right across from each other.
And it's super squatchy in there too. Really, like surprisingly remote, But like that's kind of how Western Rhode Island is. A lot, it's the smallest state in the country, but a lot of people don't realize that. Like Western Rhode Island, it's really remote, really squatchy out there. I was just like scrolling through my Facebook feed, and like it was one of those Facebook groups. Someone posted their story that they were driving. They're either driving through it or near it, and they said something burst out of the brush. I think they stopped their car in time, but they kind of like tapped into it or whatever. They didn't hit it, but they tapped into it enough to have this figure kind of like, knock it off its point of axis. And I think it kind of like its shoulder or something, like it's either like its shoulder, elbow, like some part of its arm smacked down on the hood of their car and like dented it, and then it kind of just like bounced off and ran back into the woods.
Whoa. Yeah, that's interesting. Damn, I'd like to be able to read that encounter. Damn.
Yeah, I spent hours trying to refine my Facebook. I haven't been able to yet, but if I do, yeah, you'll definitely be one of the first people I'll share it with.
Yeah, please. That actually brings me to a question that I like to ask everybody that comes on the show. Since you are someone who goes out into the woods and does actual research, can you tell me, some of your favorite places to research, so maybe some of the cooler evidence that you've been able to find, or vocals, audio, anything like that you've had experiences with?
So I'll start that with an apology. I know I was supposed to get you. I know I was supposed to email you over some a couple of like audio. Audio.
Apologize. Stop it.
No, I'd say my favorite. I guess I don't really have like a favorite spot. I've never really spent too much time researching one specific area, but the one, like, if I could pack up anywhere and go somewhere for like a long weekend right now, or just like a couple of days or something like that, it'd probably be this one state game land we have out in central PA that we've been to a bunch of times. Back in June, this was actually the last time, like, the CRC was, all of us were like managed to get together and go out in the field, like do some like investigative field work. So, it's been about a year, unfortunately, but we went to this spot, and so basically, like, you drive up this long ass fire road. It's about like a 2-mile fire road. It kind of goes like uphill a little bit, and it gets you like, you're about like a mile or two away from the nearest paved two-way road or house or anything like that. Like, you're out there. And so this fire road, we had 3 teams that kind of spread out over, like every like quarter mile, half mile or something like that. So we were all a good distance away from each other. We got there, I want to say around 11:30 or so. And the team, so like there was, you had your first team, that was kind of the trailer team, that, the other team that was in the middle, and then my team, we were kind of like the furthest out. So the middle team that we had, they were going to do like call blasting and stuff like that. And my thing that I'm really kind of like anal about when I'm out in the field and we're going to do stuff, I always say, don't go in there, guns blazing, screaming, knocking, and stuff like that. Let's let things settle down. Let things settle down. At the earliest, I don't want to do stuff for at least the first like 40, 45, 60 minutes or something like that. Yeah, we got Sean Wagner here in the chat. He was there.
Oh, okay. Hey, Sean, what's up?
Yeah, so he could probably corroborate. He could corroborate on this story and then the next one I'm about to tell. But we were there maybe, I got my recorders and everything like that set up. And we were there maybe not even 30, 40 minutes. And coming from these foothills about like a mile away from us, we heard this slow, deep, sustained vocal. It kind of sounded like something like that. And when it happened, when that happened, I got pissed actually. I'm like, we're only here a fucking half hour. Why are they call blasting already and not even letting us know? And the dude that was with me was like, no, they're that way. That came from that way. So,
oh, shit.
Yeah. But the crazy part, though, was all three teams heard it. And just in that area alone, like in my area where we're the clearing we posted up in, we had 3 different recorders out. All 3 of them caught it. Sean, I remember your recorder caught it as well. One of mine definitely got it the clearest, but you could see it on the spectrograph. You could see it on the spectrograph and everything like that. And the cool thing too was the coyotes chimed in afterwards. So I caught those howls on the spectrograph. So the great, what's great about it is you're able to kind of like distinguish what that signature looks like, its frequency compared to the coyotes, and they're just vastly different. So fast forward to this past January, I wound up going out there. One of the members of our group had like a little like town hall or something like that. So I went there to check it out, and I just wound up going up there by myself just to scope the area out, try to get some try to get some filming done for something we were doing for it. But I decided to leave a couple of recorders out there overnight. I went back on them the next morning, and when I was listening through them, two of them didn't really last too far into the night. Unfortunately, it was too cold. Like I didn't really like charge them or change the batteries or anything like that. So 2 of them died. But the one that managed to get through overnight at around 3 a.m., I got these weird ass howls, and the signatures, the frequency they were at, what the signatures look like, they looked like disgustingly similar to that first vocal that we captured there. And the crazy part is two things. Number one, these kept on going, these vocals, this wasn't just like, a one and done thing like the first one. These kept on going for a little bit. And I have like 2 sets of them. And it seems like, and the crazy thing too, it seems like it was at least 2 things calling back and forth to each other. At least that's the way I got it. I interpreted it. So the second story I have, we wound up going out to Allegheny National Forest, in Northwest PA, and that's a crazy hot spot. And
yeah, big time.
Yeah, and it's ironic too because I was the one who organized this expedition. I wanted to originally focus on Allegheny State Forest, which is on the New York side.
Mm-hmm.
So it's attached to the same greenway and everything like that. It's just the state park's on the New York side, National Forest is on the PA side. So we were gonna focus most of our time on some areas I picked out on the New York side, but we figured I think it was our second night. We had most of us there. We just figured what, Allegheny National Forest is right there. We owe it to ourselves to pay homage and spend at least one night there. So we had 2 groups. It was me and this other kid. We wound up going to like some other spot. We did like one of those death marches, hiking to a trail, just set up shop in this one spot for a couple of hours. Nothing really happened. we had a pretty dead night. The other group, though, they did their call blasting. This was around 3 a.m. and they did their call blasting. Sean could attest to this. And like a minute afterwards, I gave him a recorder to play. It captured all this. We got probably the weirdest, eeriest howls. I'm gonna email them to you after. I'm gonna email them to you after the show. I've probably ever heard in my life. The spectrograph signatures were crazy, and they happened, I think, in like three sets, like three different sets over a course of like 30, 40 minutes or something like that. But like the first set, though, those are the most prolific. Those are the ones we always like, like showcase and everything like that. At least I do. But I think we had some people in our group. I think they reached out to like Pennsylvania Fish and Wildlife, whatever their DEC equivalent is. I don't think they knew what they were. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. I played them on a couple of shows. I had some people who were like, "Yeah, that's definitely not a coyote. I work with coyotes. They don't sound like that." Because coyotes, their howls are very like high pitched, very yippy, very quick and stuff like that. These were a little deeper. They were more like drawn out. They were kind of like almost they had kind of had like a bit of like a guttural element to them. Incidentally, I know a couple of Dogman researchers. I showed them these vocals just for like shits and giggles to see what they think. We're like, yeah, we have no idea what these are. And one of them was like, "Well, that's not a Bigfoot." I'm like, "Oh, well, what do you think it is?" He's like, "I think that's a dog, man." I'm just like, of course.
Again, we're right back to where we were before, where somebody wants it to be something that they want it to be, right? The dog man researcher wants to be a dog man. I want to hear these now more than ever. That Allegheny National Forest has been a hotspot for a very long time. I mean, This is like any Bigfoot researcher knows, if you're on the East Coast, like this is a place that you need to go at some point. It's a bucket list place for me. I've never been. I want to go so bad. PA is a huge hotspot. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're one of the states that has the most Bigfoot sightings, or I don't know if it's sightings or evidence that comes out of it every year, like trackways and potential audio or whatever in the United States. And I think for a long time, most of the stuff that when you talk about these places, you spoke about it earlier, we think that most of that stuff is the Pacific Northwest or it's down south, but that state is super rural. Like, it is super rural. There are forests everywhere in that state, and it's a big state. It's not small, it's big.
I think actually in the chat, Brendan here clarified PA fishing game stance. I knew I might have jumbled up a couple of things about it, but yeah.
They refused to admit they didn't know what it was and claimed that, well, it sounded like a wolf, they wouldn't go on any record. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a common thing, right? Whenever there's any kind of wildlife officials involved or anything, this is generally what you get. They refuse to admit to anything. They give you some kind of bullshit answer that's very bland, and they're not going to say definitively it's a wolf, because then it's like, if they start telling people there's wolves in Pennsylvania when they know it's not a wolf, it's probably something else, then people are going to get freaked out because there's wolves in Pennsylvania. And I don't know that there's wolves in Pennsylvania. I don't think there are.
They haven't been spotted in PA, I think, for over like 130 odd years or something like that.
I was going to say that. Like, I don't think there's many places on the East Coast where there's any wolves.
Yeah.
Not normal.
I mean, you got like the coy wolves and everything like that, but I think the closest population is, I think there's like a small one down south somewhere, like the Ozark. I think like someone like the Ozarks. There's like a small thing like red wolves. I think Michigan. I think Michigan has like a small
Yeah.
cluster or something like that. That's about the extent. But dude, like I to this day I still listen to. I've listened to probably hours of coyote vocals, canine vocals. You know, like I still do. And you know, like whenever it's on my mind, I get a chance. Still haven't found anything that remotely resembles those vocals that we heard.
You got to send them to me because I really want to hear them. I'm curious too. The way you described them had kind of a guttural sound to them. Not like a coyote. These howls and screams that I got on this recorder last weekend. It's three. It's just three, but they're the strangest thing that I've ever heard come out of the woods in Connecticut in my life. I've never heard anything like it. Never. It's clearly powerful. You can tell that it's not anywhere close to the recorder. I mean, it's coming from a distance away, and the recorder still picks it up clearly. It echoes. I mean, it echoes through these woods, and it's like this, like it's weird, dude. It is very, very weird. So I'm curious to hear yours and see what they sound like.
Yeah, so we'll do a trade-off. I'll show you. So we'll do one of those. I'll show you mine if you show me yours, kind of things.
Yeah, we'll do that. So I didn't know anything about the CARC until Alex told me about you and the group you were a part of. How long has the group been around?
So I wasn't around when it when it officially got formed. I think it officially started like it was definitely like before before shit got crazy with COVID. I think around like early 2020-ish. Sean Brendan, jump in the chat just to fill in anything I might leave out. But it was kind of around that time, and so they kind of like laid out the framework or everything like that. And it was I'd met Sean actually on a private expedition in West Virginia a couple of months prior. And we actually, we managed to keep in touch and stuff like that. We talked about, like doing other stuff out in the field together. The individual that we were at this West Virginia exhibition with, he kind of like fell off the deep end and everything like that, unfortunately. So, but me and Sean kept in touch. So, we talk, we just like get on the phone, shoot the shit about Bigfoot and stuff like that. And, places to explore. So Sean started mentioning, I'm doing this other group. These, it's like a couple of these other guys. They also work with this one dude who organized that West Virginia Expo and everything like that. You should, if you're interested, I could tell you a little more about it. So that summer, a couple of months later, it was like July or something like that. They just kind of had like a little, introductory get together at this place in Central PA called Bald Eagle State Forest. So I went out there. Yeah. So like I went out there, met everyone. They kind of, we used to do like these weekly phone calls and everything like that. And so I started getting in the loop on those. We had one, but that's pretty much how it started. Back in the day, it used to literally be like a Facebook group of just like, 200 people in it. But, like we kept things engaged, it's definitely a very like active group and stuff like that. And like, it really like makes you realize a lot of these Facebook groups, like you have those Bigfoot groups with like, tens of thousands of people in it. But sometimes those small groups, which is like a few hundred people, are the ones where you'll find the most engaging content or most compelling content and stuff like that. And that's kind of what I like to think is how we started off. We started off in that regard. But compared to like a lot of the other like mainstream, high profile Bigfoot groups and paranormal groups out there, I still think even though we're about 3 years and change into this, we're still, I guess, the we're still kind of like the new kids on the block, I guess you could say. This, the whole this week in Bigfoot thing, I think, is doing a much better job of, getting our name out there, and stuff like that. And yeah, like in the beginning, we kind of just like had our, had our feelers out, trying to get our niches. We just, we put together just like these fringe expeditions and outings and stuff like that. And like, Central PA, went to Bald Eagle a couple of times, the Allegheny one. We went to North Jersey. We kind of did all of this throughout like the summer and fall of 2020. And, we were kind of like finding like a clear direction with those things. We talked about doing like, documentaries or docu-series or something like that. But again, just like the This Week in Bigfoot show, we were kind of struggling finding our footing in the sense that like, we were kind of struggling to figure out some type of angle or niche that would, separate us from the rest of the pack. So in the beginning, our approach, we just kind of just had like a, just get out there and film and do your tape recorders and just, do your quintessential squatching stuff. Like that was just kind of like our approach at first. Can you kind of just like, throw a bunch of shit at a wall and see what sticks.
Right. Yeah. Which is kind of, part of this, this whole thing anyway. It's trying to figure out what works, because sometimes things seem to, and sometimes they don't. And you don't know until you try it. Man, I'd love to go out sometime with you guys if you ever went back to PA and to Allegheny, or even the other place you talked about, that game area. Those sound like amazing spots.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the State Gamelands is definitely it's about 2 hours 40, 2 hours 50 minutes for me, so it's probably a much more doable drive for you. I don't know if or when where our next outing is going to be, but like even if it's like something small, as long as there's enough advance, I'd definitely love to keep you in the loop, get some of the other guys from the group, just have a nice little group.
Yeah, dude, I'd love to do something with you guys. That would be awesome. It's tough up here, man. This is just not the best area for this subject, as you know. It's hard finding people to do this with, good groups to become a part of that, go out and do things. There's a few, some of them kind of have their doors closed to new members and stuff. There's the group, Squatchachusetts. That's a really good group that, John Wilk, is the guy, I think, who runs that. And, those guys do wonderful work out there. Obviously there's you guys, but it's few and far between up here, man. It's few and far between. Going to Warren County last weekend in June, Sean and Chuck are on board so far. Been meaning to mention it to you, Mike. Warren County, is that PA?
No, so that's up in New York. We're doing I don't know if I mentioned to you, we're doing like the Tom, we're doing like that Taken documentary about this guy Tom Messick, really weird missing persons case. I don't know if you heard of it forever.
What's his name?
Tom Messick is his name, and so it's a missing 401 case. I'm sure if you've heard about that, Dave Politis, all those weird missing people. He's got all that criteria and everything like that. But that was one case that kind of kind of like caught our attention, just because it was located, so close to us, and it just seemed like this guy literally just vanished without a trace. He was a hunter, 80-something odd years old. He's got he was the guy. He had like a something bad happened with his eye, like firework exploded or something like that. But he went to this place called Lily Pond, and it's.
Oh, I do remember this.
Yeah,
I do remember this.
Yeah, it happened about, I want to say 7, 8 years ago so far. But just the circumstances behind it are very bizarre. But the one thing that, as Brendan really did like a good amount of he did a tremendous job, like doing all the research, organizing all the interviews and everything like that. And one thing that really came about this was the way Politis presented this case. He kind of did what a lot of people accuse him of doing, cherry picking details and stuff, cherry picking certain details and stuff like that to fit his fit his narrative as to what's, causing these disappearances and everything like that. So because of that, it really kind of left like a bad taste in the community's mouth. So the goal of the documentary was to go in there, poke around the area, check it out. We use like metal detectors and stuff like that. We think that could give us a potential edge. But really, like the ultimate goal is just to have the people that were there, who live in the town, who are physically there for that, the search and rescue operations and stuff like that, have them just have that story told from their point of view, because they were the ones that were physically there. Politis's account is a more of like a second hand with just with cherry pick details and everything like that. It's, if you ever watch this documentary, Missing 411: The Hunted, it's the first 20 something odd minutes or so talk about that case. And I've sat down with my parents and watched it. I've sat down with a couple of my friends and watched it, and I'm literally finding myself as certain details emerge that are misconstrued or just outright BS, not necessarily the case. I just found myself just blurting them out, pointing them out, and the people I'm with, they have no freaking idea what I'm talking about.
But I think this is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many people, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. So many people don't understand that a lot of this stuff that's out there is entertainment, right? There's truth to it, but it's not pure fact, right? It's not full truth. You're getting parts, you're getting bits, and it's put together in a way that's meant to entertain you. It's meant to pull people in so they go, oh wow, this is very, very intriguing. And that's what a lot of this stuff, infotainment, Fresh says. That's a great term, infotainment. So yes, there is real information, but then it's put together in a way that's meant to entertain. And so, yeah, I think that's awesome that you guys are, trying to figure that out. That's really interesting. There's so many of these cases, though. It's very weird, some of them. I've looked into some myself just because it was really intriguing listening to some of this stuff and how these guys who are so versed in, being in the wilderness, seasoned hunters and hikers, and how they just disappear. And then there's these weird correlations where so many times their shoes are the only thing that's found. It's that stuff's strange to me. And again, I don't know if that's cherry picked stuff too. So you have to be careful with what you take from it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not by any means an expert in search and rescue or missing person or anything like that. As far as the neatly folded clothes stuff, that's probably a little odd. But I know, especially when people get hyperthermia and stuff like that, they'll do weird shit strip their clothes off and stuff like that.
That's a common thing.
Oh yeah,
that's a common thing with hypothermia. Yeah.
But there's some missing 401 cases though. There's one that Dave Politis that I found in one of his books that happened up in the Catskills in Boyceville, New York. It happened back 1888. This guy named Maynard Davis, I think his name was. His 2-year-old girl just vanished when in their backyard or something like that. So they got a posse together, and they found this girl I think the next day or something like that, just standing on a mound of earth in the middle of a creek or something. And when they asked her what where she went, what happened to her, she said that she slept with a bear that night. So that reminds me of, I don't know if you ever heard of it. In 2019, this 3-year-old boy named Casey Hathaway. You heard about that case?
Yes.
He hung out with the bear.
The angel bear, he called it.
Yeah, that reminded me of that. And then just looking through that one book alone, the Politis book, I found about 4 or 5 other cases that all had similar circumstances. They were young, small children, anywhere from 2 to 5 years old, went missing. they describe like being looked after by like a bear, or a big black thing, or a big hairy thing or something like that. Some of these and like they happen all across the country, all throughout the years. And some of these people even describe seeing like actual things. Like one case, I think it happened in Idaho. The grandfather of this kid that went missing claimed that he saw what he said was a bear running. I think like running on like three limbs, but a cat had the kid under under its arm,
which is impossible for a bear to do.
And then the other thing too about the Casey Hathaway case, and I think one or two other ones, we did back when we did From Behind Tall Trees. I did like a whole episode on like 4 or 5 of these cases. Made a whole PowerPoint on them. But the Casey Hathaway case and like one or two other ones, these kids were found by rescue workers who, at the time, they were treading through like waist deep water, I think. So, these are grown ass people. So waist deep on the average person is probably what, like 3-4 feet or something like that. That's already above like a small child's head.
Right.
And they found these kids on just like, mounds of earth jutting out from the water, pretty much surrounded on all 4 sides. So, like how does like, a 2, 3, 4-year-old kid even wind up, even get there in the first place? Wind up there in the first place?
Well, the other part of that Casey story was that where they were and where he went missing, right? It got really cold at night, like it was freezing cold, and wasn't he gone for like 2 or 3 days?
Something like that. I think it was 3 days. You said like he hung out with a bear for 3 days or something like that.
Yeah, he called it a bear, then he called it an angel bear or something. He used different terms for it, but yeah, those are very, very interesting, man. I don't know. Like you said, a bear running on 3 limbs and holding a child is physically impossible. Yeah. Bears just can't do that. Their limbs don't bend that way to hold a child under one arm while they're running. It's interesting because you do hear stories about Sasquatch running on all 4s.
The spider crawl thing, or
spider crawl thing. Yeah. That's a creepy thing to think about too. That whole thing.
I've never seen one. I've never seen one. I hope to, but if I do, I'd honestly rather see one just on like 2 legs, like that spider crawl thing. That'd probably be it for me. That'd probably freaking freak me out.
It's just a creepy thing, man. Moving like a bug when you're 8 feet tall and skittering across the earth just doesn't seem natural. It just seems like it shouldn't happen,
Yeah, but I think I read somewhere though that like certain primates have been observed doing something very like eerily similar. Some type of stance or motion or something like that. I forget. It was just something I just like glossed over, but I think that's something like I remember seeing, like something along the lines of that. So
I'm gonna have to look that up. That's interesting. Yeah, it's just so much, man. There's so much that we still need to learn, and I always say it. I don't know that we'll learn it in my lifetime. Yeah, I mean, if it hasn't been figured out yet, who knows if it ever will. I think that's part of the draw to this stuff, right? For somebody like me, it's like the mystery is just as fun, right? If it was all figured out, would it be that fun anymore?
Yeah, precisely. And that's the thing, like I love saying, there's no experts in this field.
No.
No confirmed scientific facts. It's literally all it is just speculation.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I completely agree. I say it all the time. No experts. I'm certainly not one. I know nothing. I can only speculate and theorize and give you my thoughts and beliefs. That's all I have.
Yeah.
I share what evidence I gather. And beyond that, it's up to you to decide what you think.
Yep.
That's how this shit works, man. That's how it works. But listen, we're almost at an hour 40. I'm gonna have to hop off here, and I got to jump on the computer myself to do a little bit of work tonight. But this was great, man. I really interesting. I did not know a lot of this stuff about you. I certainly didn't know about you doing the statistical thing. I think that's so cool. And I think that it's super important that there's somebody out there that's doing that stuff, because as you know, scientific data is just that. It's you taking stuff and finding the correlations between it, and forming patterns, and in those patterns there's even more evidence to be found. And I think it's so cool that you do it, man. I definitely am not the person who could do that. And again, huge fan of the show. If you guys don't sub to the show, please do. I promise you, it's the best 30 minutes of Bigfoot shit you're going to find on the internet. I swear to God. And I don't just say this. I totally mean this. I mention the show pretty often because I really enjoy it. I just think you guys do a great job. And there's just not a lot that I tune into. You're not able to watch everything in this subject matter on YouTube anyway. You just can't. There's too much of it.
Mm-hmm.
But so you have to pick and choose what you have time to watch and what you want to watch. And this is one of the shows that I want to watch every single time it's on. I want to watch it, and it never lets me down. I have to thank you guys too. Real quick, I'll let you talk about it. I want to thank you guys too for, number one, sharing that little clip from one of my lives on the show. I wanted to let people know about the show, and then you guys took that and put it on the show, and then sent me a hat, which I'm an idiot, and I left it in the car. I meant to wear it on the show tonight, but I'm a moron. Left it in the car, and you said I'm backstage. I'm like, shit. I go backstage. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry, say what you're going to say, Mike.
As I say, you're wearing that Bengals hat. They knocked my Buffalo Bills out of the playoffs last year, so thanks for reminding me about that. But I was gonna say, like, that's really the beauty of it too, how it's just, jumbled in 30, 31, 30, 31, 32 minutes. It's long enough for you to actually sit down, get immersed, but not not too long enough where you just wind up losing yourself in it, lose interest.
Right.
A lot of times on the I don't make every single debut, but a lot of the times, sometimes we peak in terms of live viewers 20 something odd minutes into the show, and there's only a few minutes left. So
is Sean saying you have a paranormal show too?
Sean does a live show. It's called the Paranormal Files. He's kind of that's kind of our supernatural ghost related branch. That's definitely Sean's forte. He's got some really fascinating stories, accounts, got some really fascinating and ghost related investigations of his own. So he's kind of our ghost lab guy. So
oh, damn, that's awesome. Yeah. I didn't know that. Okay, so I'm into that stuff too, man. So I'm gonna have to watch that. That's awesome. So if somebody real quick could find that, the Paranormal Files, that's what's called.
Yeah, Paranormal Files. Yep. Yeah, he's got really fascinating guests on every time. We kind of we originally with the CARC, we were trying, our original plan was we were going to try to do a little bit of everything, some Bigfoot cryptid stuff, some ghost stuff, even, some UFO stuff, but we just wound up getting just sucked down the Bigfoot rabbit hole. We kind of shelved that stuff. And that was really Sean's main background before he started getting into the Bigfoot stuff. So we wound up he just wound up taking that opportunity and just ran with it.
Oh man, that's awesome. Thank you. Oh, that's not the right one. I don't think Fresh. I think it's somebody else's. It's called The Paranormal Files Into Darkness. If somebody could find that link and put it in the chat, please do that. Sean, while you're here, I've been trying to get somebody in the paranormal field on this show for a while, and I've been stood up 4 times. If you are willing and want to come on the show, please contact Mike or email me at that email address. You can reach me on Facebook Messenger under my name. I'd love to have you on the show. I've been wanting to do a paranormal show for the longest time because it's something that I'm definitely into, and I've had 4 people totally stand me up. So I'm glad I found this out. That's amazing.
Yeah, Sean's he knows his shit about this stuff. He knows his shit about this stuff, you know. So I think he definitely be a great guest. So
Awesome.
yeah, any way I can help set that up, you know, Sean will get in touch, and yeah, we'll set that shit up.
All right. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate this. You were a wonderful guest. Lots of stuff, like I said, I didn't know, and I am I'm happy you came on the show. I really appreciate it. And you know, in the future, I'd love to have you back on, man. I'd love to get some of the other guys from the show, from the CARC, on the show too, to talk about, you know, some of the stuff they've done and they're working on, and to plug the This Week in Bigfoot, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, our next episode comes out. My next episode comes out Friday, 8:00, 8 p.m. Eastern. CARC Universal. We got the live chat. Pop in, say hi, check it out, and yeah, that's kind of the grind we're on right now. So it's been going good.
Right on, man. Well, best of luck to you in the future. Guys, I'll be back on Sunday night with the Sunday Night Shit Show with our good friends Fresh and Ben from the Unexplained channel. Well, That's Fresh. I guess I have to specify this because he got mad at me because it made it sound like I jumbled them together. That's Fresh, and Ben from Unexplained will be here again on Sunday. If you didn't tune in last week, you missed out. I promise you missed out. I call it the Sunday Night Shit Show for a reason, because it's a shit show in the best way possible. So please tune in on Sunday. Thank you all for being here. Until next time, have a wonderful night. I'll see you again soon. Bye, guys.